Hi everybody, I'm Ryan, and today we're going to talk about flex slots in the Selesnya Cage, Selesnya aggro deck in Standard. So these are things that you get to choose with this deck. So you can create your own build of Selesnya Cage. Let's jump into it with the non-flex slots. So these are the cards that you're pretty much bought into playing if you're playing Selesnya Cage. These 50 cards in the main deck, which means there are 10 flex slots. And these, 0 cards in the sideboard, because this deck's just not figured out yet, especially enough in the sideboard, that nobody's really agreeing on literally anything. However, we are playing these 50 cards in the main deck. If you want to check these out, please pause the video now. However, we're here to talk about the flex slots. So what do we play in those 10 slots in the main deck and these 15 slots in the sideboard? So these are our options. We have these 29 options for those 10 slots in the main deck and 29 options for those 15 card slots in the sideboard. So let's jump into it. And in order to understand these first two, we first need to look at a different innovation as Aether Drift has come out. So some versions are now playing less Will Eat Leech and are playing 4 Bright Glass Gear Hulk. So that is an option. It's a 4/4/4 with first strike and trample. When it enters, you can search your library for up to 2 artifact, creature, and or enchantment cards with mana value 1 or less, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. So this is, it gives us the ability to not only get it off of Cage, but when it enters, we get to sort of search our deck for something to apply more pressure or really allowing us to kind of toolbox our deck. And so as far as options for that toolbox that aren't already non-flex slots, we have Haywire Might. Haywire Might is a 1 mana artifact creature 1/1. When it dies, we gain 2 life, and we can pay 1 green mana to sacrifice Haywire Might, exile target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. This is a great toolbox option if we don't want to grab one of our normal 1-drops off of Bright Glass Gear Hulk, and great main deck artifact or enchantment hate if we want it. We also have the option of Dust Rose Reliquary. So it's a 1 mana artifact. At additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature is no problem in this deck. And as Ward 2, when Dust Rose Reliquary enters, exile target artifact or creature an opponent controls until Dust Rose Reliquary leaves the battlefield. So this isn't the best O-Ring effect in the world. However, it's tutorable off of Bright Glass Gear Hulk. So playing it as a 1-of, it's kind of cool. We can play up to 2 Get Lost. 2 mana instant, destroy target creature, enchantment, or planeswalker. Its controller creates 2 map tokens, just gets rid of things with big butts. We can play a 3rd Sheltered by Ghost in the main deck. It's a 2 mana aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0, has lifelink and ward, and when it enters, and exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Sheltered by Ghost leaves the battlefield. So we'll mostly be playing this for the aggressive decks. It's an O-Ring effect, get something out of the way, gain a bunch of life, and then the aggressive your opponent can never catch up. We could play up to 2 Bramble Familiar. It is a 2 mana 2/2. We can tap it to add a green, and we can tap and sacrifice it and discard a card to return Bramble Familiar to its owner's hand. And its adventure side is Fetch Quest, where it's a 7 mana sorcery, mill 7 cards, then put a creature, enchantment, or land card from among the mill cards onto the battlefield. It's just a decent card. Our deck has become a little bit more mana intensive, and so having that 2 mana dork is pretty nice. And then in the late game, we can just essentially tutor our deck, which can grab us something like Bright Glass Gear Hulk or Overlord onto the battlefield, and this just gets really, really disgusting from there. We could play Tender Wild Guide as a 2 mana with Offspring 2. We can tap it to create 1 mana of any color, and we can tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So this is probably competing for slots with the Bramble Familiar. But it's an additional mana dork, which is awesome. And our deck is all about creating creatures with different powers and capitalizing off of those +1/+1 counters. And Tender Wild Guide can actually help out with that quite a bit, especially since we don't have to do it as a sorcery, so we can do it as a combat trick, and it's a mana dork, which is really cool. Malira Living Cure was stock, now it's not. It's an aggressively costed 2 mana card as a 3/3. It's good against poison counters. I'm not even going to read it because it's not relevant in Standard. However, we can exile Malira the Living Cure and choose another target creature or artifact. When it's put into the graveyard this turn, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So basically, this allows us to re-trigger enter the battlefield abilities when our creatures are answered, because we can sacrifice Malira and save that creature, which is sweet alongside Overlord or Gear Hulk. Play up to 2 Seraphic Steed. It's a 2 mana 2/2 with first strike and lifelink, so already very, very good against these aggressive decks. And we can saddle it for 4, and whenever it attacks when it's saddled, create a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying. So it's really good in the late game and also pretty solid blocker against the red decks. Could play a single Toby BC Befriender. It's a 3 mana 1/1. However, when it enters, create a 4/4 white beast creature token with this creature can't attack or block alone. And as long as you create 4 or more creature tokens, or as long as you control, excuse me, 4 or more creature tokens, creatures you control have flying. Pretty easy to get creature tokens in this deck, so it can very often just be something that we play and then immediately win. It's 5 power for 3 mana, which is excellently costed, with upside, which is, we're down with that. Could play Enduring in this sense. It's a 3 mana 2/1 with lifelink. Whenever one or more other creatures you control with power 2 or less enter, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So this gives, and it has the Enduring text, which when it dies, it comes back as an enchantment. But this is really good if we want to play that super long game and draw a bunch of cards out of our deck. We probably can't play this alongside Amelia or the Living Cure or anything like that, but we draw cards off of almost everything else besides the things that make us just end the game, like Gear Hulk. We play up 3 Wilty Fleege in the main deck. It's a 4 mana 4/4. Other green creatures get +1/+1. Other white creatures get +1/+1. And if a spell or ability opponent controls would cause you to discard this card, put it onto the battlefield instead of putting it into your graveyard. This is a lord for our entire deck. Sometimes it gives creatures +2/+2, which is really fun. So we love that. It's just like a decent creature in and of itself. However, a lot of the bounce decks are playing Hopeless Nightmare, and we can start the game with this on the battlefield if they go turn 1 Hopeless Nightmare, which is really sweet. Where I talked about Bright Glass Gear Hulk, so Virtue of Loyalty is a 5 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So really good if we're going live. We get to pump them up to maybe attack through the blockers that we need to attack through. And it's a 2 mana 2/2 with Vigilance on its adventure side. So it's good in the early game and girl in the late game. We love cards like that in our Selesnya aggro deck. So you're going to be selecting 10 of these 29 cards to add to your main deck. And let's look at the sideboard. So we're going to be selecting 15 cards. We do not have anything in our sideboard yet. Elspeth's Smite is a 1 mana instant, deals 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. If a creature would die this turn, exile it instead. The reason this card is good is because it's good against the aggro decks. It makes Heartfire Hero go away without doing damage to you, good against the enduring cards, etc, etc. Destroy Evil is a 2 mana instant, destroy target creature toughness 4 or greater, or destroy target enchantment. Really good against decks that are playing problematic enchantments, even better against big butted blockers we're having a hard time attacking through, like Shield Raid or something. Invasion of Gobekon is a 2 mana siege. When it enters, look at target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it for as long as that card remains exiled. Its owner may play it. A spell cast this way costs 2 more to cast. So this deck is really weak to board wipes, and so being able to delay those board wipes is super important. However, the Light Shield Array on the other side is good for this deck as well, where it's an enchantment that says at the beginning of your end step, remember you get this if you defeat the siege, which starts at 3, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that attacked this turn. So it allows us to get pumped up, kind of like the Wilty Fleege. And you can sacrifice Light Shield Array to have creatures you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So it can stop most board wipes, not Sunfall, but pretty much every other board wipe, which is very powerful. Playing 2 Rest in Peace for Graveyard Hate. When it enters exile graveyards, and anything that would go to a graveyard is exiled instead. We're playing 2 Cootseal's Flanker. It is a 3 mana 3/1 with Flash, and when it enters, we get to choose one. Put a +1/+1 counter on Cootseal's Flanker for each creature that left the battlefield under your control this turn, or you gain life and scry 2, or you can exile target player's graveyard. So it's instant speed Graveyard Hate, allows us to have a blocker, select our card draw, and gain life, and can follow up after a board wipe sometime. Really good all-around card, not really targeting anything specifically though. We could be playing 4 Aven Interrupter. This is a 3 mana 2/2. Flash and Flying. When it enters exile target spell, it becomes plotted. Spells your opponent casts from graveyards or exile cost 2 mana to cast. Really good against combo decks. Even better alongside Invasion of Gobekon to stop board wipes. Play up to 2 Split Up. It's effectively a one-sided board wipe. It's a 3 mana sorcery. Choose one, destroy all tap creatures or destroy all untapped creatures. Very good against fast decks that we're attempting to race with. Paw Patch Formation is a 2 mana instant. Choose one, destroy target creature with flying, destroy card enchantment, or draw a card, create a food token. Mostly be playing this against the enchantment decks. We could play 3 Obstinate Baloth in the sideboard. It kind of fulfills a similar role as Wilty Fleege. It's really for the Hopeless Nightmare decks and applying a ton of pressure to these Hopeless Nightmare decks. However, while Wilty Fleege works with your primary game plan, allows you to pump up your troops, Obstinate Baloth gains 4 life when it enters the battlefield, which makes it so you can side it in against the aggressive decks, and it's totally fine as well. We could play 1 Thrun, Breaker of Silence. It is a 5 mana legendary creature, 5/5. It can't be countered, has trample, and it can't be the target of non-green spells your opponent control or abilities from non-green sources your opponent control. And during your turn, Thrun has Indestructible, which means you can keep attacking with it. Really good against the hyper slow decks. It's just really hard for them to answer. Nissa is too. Nissa is a 7 mana with 2 Phyrexian mana. Planeswalker that is completed, which means you can Phyrexian mana, where you can pay life or pay the green. And if you paid life, it comes in with less loyalty. Its +1/+1 is X green Phyrexian horror creature token, where X is Nissa Ascended Animus loyalty. Its -1 is destroy target artifact or enchantment, and it's -7 until end of turn creatures you control get +1/+1 for each force you control and gain trample. So this card is super good against decks that we would either like to be destroying artifacts or enchantments that aren't super aggressive decks, or just slow decks because it can provide a threat. We could be playing those 3 Wiltleaf Legion in the sideboard. I've already talked about why it's good, but you could be playing that in the sideboard, especially if you're playing the Brightless Gearhulk version in the main deck. And a single Ghost Vacuum, additional graveyard hate. It's a 1 mana artifact, SL target card from a graveyard. And we can also pay 6 mana and tap it and sacrifice Ghost Vacuum to put each creature card exiled with Ghost Vacuum onto the battlefield under your control. If there are 1/1 in addition, there are other types activate only as a sorcery. So this is not as good graveyard hate as Rest in Peace. However, it is graveyard hate, and it has upside if the game goes hyper long. So you're going to be picking 15 of these 29 cards. You're going to be picking 10 of these 29 cards for the main deck. And when you do that, you have your very own but stock version of Selesnya Cage. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.